The night felt heavier than usual. The air was thick with tension, the silence unsettling. Nicholas Williams, once a man of power and prestige, staggered into his living room, his shoulders slumped as though he carried the weight of the world. His crisp white shirt, which once exuded confidence, was now wrinkled and soaked in sweat. His tie hung loosely around his neck, a painful metaphor for how suffocated he felt by the sudden collapse of everything he had built. He ran a trembling hand through his disheveled hair, his heart pounding. He had spent all day trying to salvage the situation, hoping there was anything he could do to undo this disaster. But no, it was over. Jessica, his wife, sat elegantly on the couch, her long legs crossed as she painted her nails a bright, glossy red. Her silky nightgown draped over her perfect frame, her diamond earrings glistening under the chandelier lights. She was the definition of perfection, the kind of woman who turned heads effortlessly. But tonight, she barely acknowledged her husband's presence. Nicholas exhaled shakily, sinking into the chair opposite her. His voice came out hoarse, almost a whisper. "Jessica, something terrible has happened. I am finished. We are doomed." She didn't look up. Nicholas swallowed hard. I lost everything." Her hand froze mid-air. Slowly, she lifted her gaze, her perfectly arched brows furrowing in confusion. "What do you mean?" Nicholas lowered his head, staring at his hands as if they belonged to a stranger. "I made a terrible business decision. A deal I thought was foolproof turned out to be a trap. The company collapsed. The bank has seized our assets. The house, the cars, everything. We have nothing left, Jess." For the first time in years, he saw his wife's eyes widen in something that looked like genuine fear. A loud, urgent knock echoed through the house, making her jump. Nicholas's heart clenched. He already knew who it was. Jessica shot him a panicked look. "Who is that?" Before he could answer, the door burst open. Two men in black suits stormed inside with cold, emotionless expressions. One of them handed Jessica a crisp document. "Mrs. Williams," the man said flatly, "this house and all assets attached to it have been repossessed by the bank. Your time is up." Jessica's hands trembled as she scanned the papers, her mouth opened, but no words came out. Finally, she turned to Nicholas, her voice rising with fury. "Nicholas, what the hell is this? You used our house as collateral for a loan." Nicholas looked away, ashamed. "I thought I could fix it before it got to this." Jessica let out a bitter laugh, one that held no amusement. It was sharp, cold, and laced with venom. "You're telling me that the great Nicholas Williams, the man who showered me with luxury, the man every woman envied me for, is now a broke, pathetic failure, a total failure." Nicholas winced, her words cutting deeper than any wound ever could. Jessica turned back to the men. "This can't be happening. There has to be something we can do. I won't survive with this." The second man checked his watch. "You have 1 hour to vacate the premises." Jessica's perfect world had just crumbled. And as Nicholas watched the horror unfold in her eyes, something inside him told him that this wasn't just the end of their wealth, it was the end of their love. Or, at least, the love he thought they had. "Nicholas, what do you want me to do now? What will I tell friends? My friends will laugh at me. They will mock me. My world is finished." Jessica cried and sank to the floor. "Jessica, hold yourself. We will find a way out of this mess." "Take it easy," Nicholas said, but as he tried to touch Jessica, Jessica forcibly yanks his hand off her. "Don't dare touch me. Don't come close to me. You put us in this mess. You are the reason why we are going to suffer," Jessica snarled. Nicholas didn't know what else to say. He had always been a good husband and father. He had been providing for his family, making sure that they never lacked anything. He looked at Jessica and shook his head. All he needed from her was love and support. They moved into a small, overcrowded public yard, a sharp contrast to the mansion they once called home. Gone were the crystal chandeliers, the marble floors, the grand dining table where Jessica once hosted extravagant dinners. Now, they shared an old, run-down apartment where cockroaches scurried across the walls, where the ceiling leaked whenever it rained, and where the sound of crying babies and shouting neighbors became their daily lullaby. Nicholas, still determined to provide, left early every morning to hustle, doing whatever odd jobs he could find. It wasn't much, but he ensured that his children, Nathan and Emily, never went to bed hungry. But Jessica? She hated everything about their new life. She ran away each time she saw anyone that knew her. She refused to cook, refused to clean. She barely spoke to Nicholas unless it was to hurl insults. And worse, she no longer hid her disdain for him. "You disgust me," she spat one evening when Nicholas returned home, exhausted, carrying a bag of groceries. "You've turned me into a common woman. Do you think I married you for this kind of suffering?" Nicholas clenched his jaw, fighting the pain her words caused. "I'm doing my best, Jessica." "Your best isn't good enough," she snapped. "Look at us, living like peasants, and you expect me to be grateful. You know that I hate suffering, yet you subject me to this. Jessica, do you want me to kill myself before you know that I am trying my best?" Nicholas cried out. "Kill yourself, Nicholas, kill yourself, if that is what it will take us to live a good life." Jessica clapped back. "Is that what you are saying?" "Jessica, are you the one saying all these?" Nicholas questioned. "Yes. What is the use of this life that you are living? Die, let me have a good life." Nicholas nodded his head and went outside. The neighbors began whispering about her. About how she no longer respected her husband. About how she had started dressing up and leaving the yard in the evenings, stepping into flashy cars driven by rich men. Nicholas confronted her one night when she returned, the scent of expensive cologne clinging to her skin. "Jessica, where were you?" His voice was quiet but firm. She smirked. "Out? With another man?" Jessica let out a mocking laugh. "What does it matter? You can't provide for me." And let's be honest, Nicholas, there is no such thing as love without money. Nicholas's heart shattered into a million pieces. That was the night he lost her completely. And a week later, she left. Bags packed, she stood in the middle of the yard, smirking at him as though he was nothing more than an obstacle in her way. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "I refuse to live like this. I deserve better." Nicholas's voice trembled. "Jessica, please, think about the kids." She rolled her eyes. "They will survive." And just like that, she walked away. Nicholas fell to his knees, his son Nathan wrapping small arms around his shaking frame. From her small shop in front of the yard, Olivia watched it all. She had seen Jessica's cruelty. She had heard the insults. She had watched the pain in Nicholas's eyes every single day. And she had seen enough. Inside the room, Nicholas laughed out loud. So this was it. Was that what she meant when she said that she loved him? Love that blossoms when there's money, but faded away the moment there's no money. He smiled and thanked God. 3 months passed. Jessica was gone, lost in the world she thought was better, but Nicholas, he endured. And Olivia? She was always there. She took care of the children when Nicholas went out to work. She cooked for them when there was no food. She never asked for anything in return. One evening, as Nicholas sat outside, staring blankly at the sky, Olivia approached him with a plate of food. "You need to eat," she said softly. Nicholas looked up at her. She wasn't glamorous like Jessica. But there was something about her, something pure. Nicholas collected the food and started from that day. Olivia always gave him food when he comes back from work. Olivia encouraged him more and always told him that things would be better. Those words he expected to hear from Jessica were said by Olivia. Olivia became his strength and power, his everything. One day, as they were both sitting outside, Nicholas concluded inwardly. He was going to talk. He was going to spill it out. It was either she said yes or no, and before he knew it, he asked, "Will you marry me?" Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. Yes. The next morning, Nicholas put on a crisp suit and took her to the courthouse. They got married in a quiet, simple ceremony. That night, as they sat together, Nicholas reached for her hands. "I want to share something with you." "What?" she questioned curiously. Jessica left because she thought I have lost everything, but the truth is that I never lost everything, he whispered. She gasped. What? I tested Jessica. She failed. But you? You are my real queen. Tears streamed down Olivia's face, and they both embraced themselves tight. And miles away, Jessica learned the painful truth. She had lost everything, and this time, there was no going back. Jessica sat alone in a cheap, one-room apartment, the sound of a leaking tap echoing in the silence. The walls were cracked, the air stuffy, and the bed beneath her was hard and unforgiving. She had thought she was making the best decision when she walked out of Nicholas's life. She believed that love without money was a joke, that she deserved better, that wealth would always find her. But the man she had left her husband for, Richard, was nothing but an illusion. She had met him in a nightclub, his wrist adorned with a Rolex, his fingers wrapped around a glass of the most expensive whiskey. He whispered promises into her ears, telling her he would take care of her, that she deserved a life of luxury, that she was too beautiful to suffer in poverty. She believed him, but reality came crashing down too soon. 3 months later, Richard vanished without a trace. He had left the country, taking his real family, his wife and children with him. Jessica had been nothing but a fleeting amusement, a side piece he had no intention of keeping. And now, she had no one. Her so-called friends, the ones who had envied her extravagant lifestyle when she was married to Nicholas, now pretended they didn't know her. The flashy cars stopped coming, the expensive dates were over, and the reality of her foolishness hit her like a punch to the gut. One evening, as she wandered through the streets, her once elegant clothes now faded and ill-fitting, she overheard 2 of her old friends gossiping. "Did you hear about Nicholas?" one of them asked. Jessica's heart jumped. She hid behind a tree, straining to hear. "Yes, oh, the man is still very rich. Can you believe it? He only pretended to be broke to test his wife." Jessica's breath caught in her throat. The other woman gasped, "Are you serious?" "Very serious. And you won't believe who he married." "Who?" "That Olivia, the poor girl from the public yard." Jessica felt the world tilt beneath her feet. It wasn't true. It couldn't be true. She clutched her chest as the reality set in. Nicholas had never truly lost everything. He had been testing her, and she had failed. Tears burned her eyes as she stumbled away, her mind spiraling into chaos. She had thrown away her husband, her children, her home, everything for nothing. Nicholas sat on the balcony of their new home, watching Olivia play with Nathan and Emily in the garden. The children laughed freely, their small hands wrapped around Olivia's as they ran around, giggling with pure happiness. He hadn't seen them this happy in a long time. Nicholas smiled, warmth filling his heart. Olivia had stepped into their lives like a quiet storm, gentle yet powerful. She had loved his children as though they were her own, never once asking for anything in return. She was nothing like Jessica. She didn't demand luxury, didn't complain about their circumstances, didn't treat him like a failure. Even when they lived in the public yard, she stood by him, cooking for the children, helping them with their homework, ensuring they never felt the absence of a mother. And now, as his real wife, she was the queen of his home. Nicholas stood up and walked towards them, wrapping his arms around Olivia's waist. She laughed, leaning into his embrace. "Are you happy?" he murmured into her ear. She turned to look at him, her eyes shining with love. "I've never been happier." Nicholas kissed her forehead, feeling a peace he had never known before. This was real love. A love built on sacrifice. A love that wasn't defined by money, and he would cherish it forever. Jessica stood outside the gates of Nicholas's mansion, her heart hammering wildly in her chest. It was true. He had not only regained his wealth, he had built an even bigger empire. And Olivia now lived the life that Jessica had once thrown away. Dressed in a simple but elegant gown, Olivia stood on the balcony, laughing as Nicholas whispered something into her ear. Her children stood beside them, looking happier than ever. Jessica swallowed the lump in her throat. She had been so blind. She had believed that money was the only thing that mattered in love. She had let greed destroy the beautiful life she once had. And now, it was too late. Taking a deep breath, she walked towards the security guards. "I need to see Mr. Nicholas Williams," she said, her voice shaking. One of the guards raised an eyebrow. "Do you have an appointment?" Jessica bit her lip. "No, but please tell him Jessica is here." The guard hesitated before picking up his radio. Minutes passed, then the answer came. "Mr. Williams said he has nothing to say to you." Jessica's heart shattered. Tears streamed down her face as she turned away, each step heavier than the last. She had lost everything, and this time, there was no going back. Nicholas watched from the window as Jessica disappeared into the distance. For a fleeting moment, he felt pity for her, but he quickly brushed it aside. He had given her the chance to prove her love, and she had failed. Now, he had a real woman beside him, a woman who had stood by him in his worst moments, who had loved him without conditions, who had proven that love wasn't about wealth, but about the willingness to endure the storms together. He turned back to Olivia, who was setting the dinner table with the kids. Smiling, he walked over and pulled her into a tight embrace. "I love you," he whispered. She smiled, resting her head against his chest. "I love you too." And this time, he knew. This love was real. It wasn't about money. It was about trust, patience, and sacrifice. And it was a love that would last forever. Hello, champions. I hope you enjoyed our stories. Please hit the like button, leave a comment below, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks.